So, hello everybody. Several years ago, I made a video called Playing the Dark Eye on a Shoestring. If you don't have any money and you still want to play the Dark Eye, what can you do? And back then, there were quite a lot of things on offer that were for free. The only thing that you really had to pay for was the core rulebook, which you could get as a PDF for, I don't know, 20 euros in English. So today, I'm going to start a series of books that deal with what you should get if you want to play, depending on what you would like to play. Now, most of the publications are in English, but of course you could get the PDF and then just, I don't know, get an electronic translation. Apparently there is software today, as somebody told me, somebody commented on one of my videos saying, oh yeah, they just buy the German stuff and then they run it through some software and they get an English translation. So I didn't realize that you could do this with PDFs. I don't know what the quality of the translation is like, but apparently that's a thing. So basically, you can use this apparently even if you don't speak German. So what do you need? Well, the core rulebook is something that you will always need. The core rules, unlike, for example, the core rules, or there are no core rules in D&D. You have the player's handbook and the dungeon master's handbook and then a bestiary. The Dark Eye is more like, at least in 5th edition, it's a lot more like Pathfinder, where you have one big rule book to rule them all, as it were. So this book is the core rules. There is only this book. There is no separate player handbook. And in this book, you can use it to play straight away. You have everything you need to know in order to play the core mechanics. How do you do checks? What kind of talents and specialties can your character have? There are the different types of species that you can play. You can play humans, you can play dwarves, you can play elves, and you can play half-elves. That's all there is. And then there is something about combat, there is something about magic, there is something about the work of the gods, so basically the clerics, the detailed rules, heat and cold, damage sources, healing, regeneration, blah, blah, blah. Some of this is completely optional, where you kind of go, I don't really need to know about social status, because most of the time it doesn't enter into anything. Then you have a little bestiary with a couple of creatures, demons, elementals, animals, familiars, and new special abilities. The thing is, since this is low fantasy, you don't have that bigger deal of a bestiary. You know, there are now a couple of Pandemonia, so basically 2 books that deal with the demons of the Dark Eye, but mainly, you know, and you don't usually encounter those, because when you encounter a demon, that usually means TPK. They are very, very powerful. And also, you don't really have the possibility of playing somebody who conjures up demons, because as soon as you do this, you are out of the game, because that is completely unholy and people will just prosecute you for it and kill you. Alchemy is in there, but it's really underdeveloped. So if you're wanting to play an alchemist, you will not be able to work with just the rulebook, the core rulebook, because it doesn't really give you enough. So, since in this core rulebook they had to put in 40 years worth of lore, of classes, etc., they had to strip it down. And the most stripped down class is the clerics. Traditionally, in Aventuria, most people believe in the 12 gods. It's the pantheon of the 12 gods, which was declared law in the Silem Horas proclamation, where it was said that there are 12 gods, these are the 12 gods, and Prios is the head of the gods, he's the sun god. However, in this core rulebook, you only have 6 of them. Prios, Rondra, Boron, Hesinde, Fex, and Perrine. Which is not enough, so you leave out the other 6, for which you can play clerics. But they're not in the book, which is really, really weird. So today, I'm going to concentrate on the clerical class. What do you need if you want to play a cleric? Well, first of all, as I said, you need the basic rulebook. And when we turn to page 305, you have the work of the gods. It tells you about the different aspects of the gods. So, for example, you have Prios, and he's got different aspects. You've got, and his two things are anti-magic. So if you have a Prios cleric in your group and a magic user, there will be built-in conflict and order. Then we have the aspects of Rondra. She's the goddess of war. We've got shield and we've got storm. This is also a goddess that is very much revered by knights and by nobility. And there are those Rondrites who say only nobles are worthy. Anyone who isn't a noble has been put into the divine order at the lowest rank, and we don't care about them. So that is a very, very, I wouldn't say common Rondrite belief. Not all of them believe it. And there are certain sects that believe this more strongly than others. And then there are those that say, no, everybody can have a place, a high place in the divine order, but you have to show nobility and you have to show bravery. And if you don't show bravery, if you don't look out for the weak ones, if you don't shield the weak ones, this is what this is about, we don't care about you. And others say just being a noble person makes you special. So as you can see, this is a very interesting, and I actually like playing Rondrites because they are so weird in a way. And when you compare it to our own worldview today, after Enlightenment and everything, 21st century Western Europe, they can be very infuriating. Boron is the god of death and sleep and dream. Hezinde is a very interesting goddess because she stands for magic and knowledge. So she is in direct opposition to Prios because she believes that magic is important and magic needs to be used, and magic needs to be understood, magic needs to be harnessed, and it needs to be used for the good of the people. Fex is interested in commerce. He's also a little bit of a trickster. He's not malevolent. He's also sometimes considered the god of thieves, but he doesn't condone, if you like, robbery or something like that. He's more like, okay, so somebody thieved something, but it's kind of like petty theft. So he's not a criminal and he doesn't condone crime. Perrine is the goddess of healing and agriculture. So she's very important. So if you have a priest of Perrine with you, at least you get some healing, because healing is very hard to come by in this game. Then you have a couple of explanations of basic terms of divine work. So miracles, range, spirit, liturgical, ceremonial, modifications, liturgical chants, how much does it cost, what is the duration, ceremonies, blessings, etc. And then different target categories. So because different types of liturgies can affect different types of creatures. So non-living, you have undead, ghosts, mindless, vampires, ensouled, revenants, and so on and so forth. Then some more information about the mechanics of playing a cleric and what happens when you try to work the miracles of the gods. Then, of course, a list of all of the blessings that there are. So you have 12 normal blessings that every cleric has access to. So each god in the lore decided that they were going to give one blessing and open it up for every single person that is a priest of the 12 gods. Then you have the liturgical chants. Here my problem is that they actually ordered them alphabetically, which does make sense, but I would have preferred to have them ordered alphabetically, but then have a separate section where you have them ordered by deity, because unless you are a cleric of a certain deity, you can't learn their blessings or their chants or whatever. So here you've got like this list, but I would have preferred if it had been like with the description. And then you have this list, which would have been nice if this had been something like a takeout, and also, you know, instead of, you know, you have to sit at the table like this. So I really don't like it. And when you sit there with this really heavy book, it's actually a bit difficult to manage. And then that's the end. That is all that you can find about clerics in this book. So of course, if you want to play a serious cleric, that's not enough. But some say that this was something that Ulysses did to make more money, and that may well be the case. But then again, Ulysses is no different from Wizards of the Coast or Paizo. They need to make money. They are businesses, first and foremost. TSR also needed to make money. When people go, yeah, well, it all ended when whatever her name was, Lorraine Williams, I believe, took over from Gary Gygax. You know, Gary would never want to make money. Gary wanted to make money. So, if you want to play a cleric, you need the basic rulebook, and you do need Aventurisches Götterwirken Part 1. So that's the Works of the Gods Part 1. I believe that I saw that there was a Kickstarter for this at one point. I don't know if this is still ongoing or if this was fulfilled and has been released, but you really need this. Why do you need it? Number one, you have all of the 12 gods in here, plus some of the half gods, Arves, Ifirn, Kor, Nandus, and Swafnir, who is a regional god, only revered by the Thorwalians, but very important. I'm pretty sure that he's going to have a huge I hope that when the Thorwalian regional supplement comes out, that he will get an extra boost there. And you've got the Nameless one, and that is the devil, that is Satan in this world. You have the traditions, and this is where this book really comes into its own, because when I take, let's say, the Rondrites, they are fighters first and foremost. They've got a lot of liturgies that you can use to that help you, at least not in the basic rule book, but later on. But the idea is these are fighters. They're like the Knights Templar. They fight. And so sometimes you wonder what's the difference between them and a really, really good fighter, because they have a ceremonial weapon which is quite difficult to yield. It's very bad to use in parry. It's, you know, it's, if they were to use their traditional weapon, if they hit, they are very powerful, but to get them to hit is very difficult because it takes a lot of experience points to get them to a level where they will hit. But then again, you have fighters and they have all kinds of great abilities like feinting, etc. But you have this cleric who has to spend a lot of experience points during character creation to even just become a cleric, so that they have very little left to work on their fighting skills. And that's kind of annoying because their liturgies all deal with either attracting someone who's attacking weak ones to turn towards the cleric and fight them, or to force somebody to play by the rules and engage in a noble duel and follow Rondra's creed of, if somebody drops a weapon, you have to wait for them to pick it up. If somebody turns their back on you, you can't attack them. If somebody runs from the battlefield, you cannot pursue them. You know, all these kinds of things. So they have all of these liturgies, but then again, when it comes down to fighting, they are not that strong off the bat when you create them at 1100 points. And so over the course of the adventurer's life, if you were to only have this book, you would start buying all of those fighting abilities. And you can. There's nothing wrong with that. But it really just turns them into a normal fighter who wears a really weird cape and, you know, mumbles a couple of words every so often and creates miracles and maybe, you know, blesses people. And they're not even that good at that. And that's a little bit sad, I felt. It was kind of, there was something missing. Now, this book changed all that because they put in the so-called traditions. Some of this, like the aspects, you know already from the core rulebook. So for example, for Price, it's anti-magic and order. But then each of them got their ceremonial implement. For some it's a weapon and for some it's something else. And this was imbued with particular things that you can do with it. So for example, as a Rondrite, this is their ceremonial weapon, the Rondra's crest. You suddenly get to use it to do special things like lightning strike. If you have this ability, you can perform a short ritual. I'm just going to call it a ritual. It's not really a ritual, but I don't know how to explain it actually. And if you succeed, you will get an additional bonus to your attack value. And this lasts for 3 rounds in combat. That can be very powerful. However, it comes at a price because you are asking something from your deity. And that means the deity says, yes, I grant you this. Because for clerics, they kind of have to negotiate with their deity. Unlike, let's say, magic users who have a certain pool of astral energy that they can use and expend and that gets refilled, using karmal energy comes at a price. On the one hand, there is such a thing as, I don't even know what they call it in English. It's becoming closer to your deity, which comes with detriments, but it also comes with some very benign side effects. But if you become too close to your deity, you actually fall unconscious. You will recover, but it's going to take a long while. These abilities come with trance. And trance means, at level 1, that for the next 24 hours, you cannot regain karmal energy. So if you're also expending karmal energy because you're invoking miracles, you will be depleted and there is nothing you can do. Plus, of course, if you are trancing, as it were, and if you're still expending karmal energy, at some point you will also find this becoming closer to the deity. The two of them are cumulative and have then very negative side effects, or can have very negative side effects. However, I find it very thematic to say, okay, if I am going to increase my ability to hit, and I'm getting divine intervention for this, that I pay a price. You can do this on multiple occasions during the same fight. You always add an additional level of trance. You can get up to 4. 4 means for the next 4 days you will not be able to regain any karmal power. Also, you may actually fall unconscious. I believe that at level 4 you can't do anything. So I really like this because it means, yes, they can do something that other people can't do, but it comes at a price. Then next up from Blitz, from this particular lightning strike comes thunderclap. You have to have lightning strike before you can get thunderclap, and that does something else. Again, you perform a small ritual, and then for the next 3 rounds, you get an additional bonus to the amount of damage you can potentially do. Now, there are profane abilities that allow you to do the same. And you can get them as a fighter. And also you could get them as a Rondrite. However, they only last for 1 round. And secondly, you have to reduce your attack value in order to gain the additional possible damage points. You can do this, it's not a problem, but I find it a lot more thematic that you would use your divine connection, as it were. But again, you have to pay a price because you will be trancing, and that can become detrimental if you do it too often. But I really like this idea because it makes it a lot more divine. It fleshes out the role of the deity in the life of the cleric. And you have the same for all the other 12, or for all the other 11. So this is effort. So he's the sea god. His divine implement is the and they call it Effort's beard. It's a trident, and things that you can do with it. I don't know if they actually create trance. Yeah, this one creates trance. This one creates trance. This is Travia. She's the goddess of hearth and home. She's not in the main rule book, and she has the goose bag. So basically the goose is her holy animal, and it's a bag, and it provides certain things. So it can create food, it can this is particular bread that she can make, that will also take away certain negative effects that someone might have been experiencing. So this is all about providing people with food. She will also trance if she does this. And this is food that will help them regenerate. So it's all around this idea of, I mean, some of these are a bit where you can go, oh, really? That's really? But, you know, if you play a Travia cleric, you play somebody who looks out for people and after hearth and home, and then you have very limited abilities, but the ones that you do have can come in quite handy. Boron, then again, also has a weapon. It's kind of like a hammer. And there are also trancing abilities in there. I call them trancing abilities. Of course, they've got a different name. Hizinde, she has a book. This is the book of the snake. And basically, you can use this for different things. Well, these ones actually... if somebody were to try and ensorcel the cleric, if he has the book and this ability, then it'll make it more difficult to ensorcel him and to work magic against him, which is very, very good. Here we've got Firon. He's the grim god of the hunt and of the north and the winter. And he's got a knife as his holy implement, and then you have different things that you can do with a knife. Then you have Raya. She's the goddess of sex, and let's not talk around it. She is the goddess of sex, and she's actually naked in this picture. Sorry about that. She's got a red scarf and things that she can do with that. Again, playing one of those clerics is a bit difficult because, you know, it works if you live in a city and they are part of the city, and you basically, because most of them actually also work as prostitutes in the temple. That's what they do. Then you have Arves. He's a bit of a weird one. He's the goddess, or he's the god of hiking and walking around and learning new, and also maybe sometimes learning new things, but basically walking around. Firon is the daughter of Firon. She's the nice aspect of winter. And then you also have, and I want to really point this out, you also have the Nameless Cult. So these are the clerics that worship the equivalent of Satan in this world. So he's the 13th god, he's evil. And I would like to point out that, and then of course you've got different things that you can do, you know, additional rules, blah blah blah. So this is now there's a lot of stuff in here that you can use, things that you don't have to use, you know. But not everything that is in this book is something that you can use as a player character to play. You cannot play, I mean, I've had this discussion a million times with players in my games. Yeah, but it says in this book that I can do this. And I have to tell them, no, it doesn't say that you can do it. It says that there are clerics of the Nameless One. The information in there is mainly geared towards me as the dungeon master, because I need to be able to create them and I need to be able to run them and I need to be able to know what they can do. You cannot play this character in any game, because as soon as somebody finds out who you are, they will kill you. They are obliged to exterminate you. You are evil incarnate. You will not survive. You can't play this cleric. So, and I think maybe this is something that they should have, that maybe a lot of players find a bit difficult to understand. Just because it's in a rule book doesn't mean it's a rule that applies to players. Just because it's written down doesn't mean that you can do it. There are places for everything, but a lot of these are not for the player, they are for the dungeon master. Of course, someone can say, oh yeah, well, I will play a nameless cleric and I've got a nameless cleric in my group. That's good for you, great, and if you're enjoying this, super. But it doesn't fit the world. It doesn't fit the world, and it doesn't fit the way the world works, because the world, and this is something I think where we sometimes have to take a step back from our very secularized Western world, where most people are not religious and where religion doesn't play a big role. This is a world where the gods don't necessarily walk around, but where they work and where they have people, they've chosen people that will do their will, that will work their miracles. So the gods are real. Nobody will say in this world that the gods don't exist. People who do this are like people in our world that say the earth is flat, because you can see the earth isn't flat, just like you can see that the gods exist because people are there who perform their miracles in the name of the gods, and these miracles actually work. We don't have this in our world. So if you then have somebody who represents the destructive force, the world destructive force of the Nameless One in this world, you will not let them live, because unless you want the world to be destroyed, in which case you are on the dark side already. So this idea of saying, oh yeah, well, I'm going to play this, the answer is no, you can't, because it doesn't make sense. As soon as somebody finds out who you are, they will just kill you. If you meet a Rondrite, they will just basically take their Rondra crest and behead you there and then. There will be a mob of people that will burn you out. You know, so it doesn't really work like this. So this book, in my opinion, since this is a buyer's guide, is essential. If you want to play clerics, you need this book. Absolutely. There is also a second part. Which is not essential for most people. However, it contains interesting stuff. It takes us into the world of even more deities, because there are more. For example, it gives us more information on Angrosh, who is the god of the dwarves, and he's the god of the forge. So he is a little bit like Ingerim, but he is only revered by the dwarves. Then we have other side cults. Maribo, she's the daughter of Boron. Leftan, Ruhr and Gror. Ruhr and Gror are two bisexual, no, not bisexual, they are, well, possibly that too, but they are hermaphrodite gods, twins, who are revered in one area of Dere, and their religion states that one of them, Ruhr, threw a disc, which is our world, to Gror, and as soon as Gror catches it, the world will end. It's a very interesting idea and concept, and they believe in reincarnation, and they also believe that everyone is man and woman. So it's a very interesting concept. And then you have a lot of shamans, because there are a lot of cultures that have shamans, and they are dealt with in this book. Then you have, again, more information about, like, let's say, the deities. So now we have talismans in this, again, special abilities, liturgies, professions, again, having to do with the types of clerics that are described in this book. Archetypes again, so basically if you want to know, if you want to start playing straight away, you can choose one of the archetypes and then just use that. And then they also have information about vampires and how vampirism works, which is very interesting, and at least for the dungeon master, very good. It also tells you a little bit about new cultures like the Ferkinas, the Gjalskers, and the people from the Trollsacks. And it also tells you about the Hajinim, which is an order in the far south. Let's turn to 217. And no, I didn't mark the book. This is part and parcel of the book. So basically this was... this is an original text, as it were, and it has been redacted. They are an order of monks, of fighting monks that live in the mountains. And they believe in Rastola, and Rastola is kind of like our Allah. So basically, the belief of this group and of the Novadi is like Islam. It's very much modeled on Islam. And they are very interesting because they live in seclusion, and they well, what they do is they actually fight for good. So again, you have new professions, things that you can do, and it is, I wouldn't say a must, but it contains information that is important, like, let's say, if you have vampires and if you encounter vampires, and vampires are not common, but they do happen, they do exist, and they do have certain rules, and they are explained in here. It's interesting that this would come in a book about the gods, but then again, they are unholy, so it does make sense, a little bit at least. I would have expected it in a bestiary. Maybe there is a bestiary at some point, or maybe it's even in one of the ones that I have and I just haven't looked at it yet. But this is information that's in here. I don't think this is essential unless you want to play a shaman, or unless you really want to play one of the professions that are explained in here. So, as far as buyer's guides go, for clerics, of course, you need the core rules, and you need the first of the Aventurisches Götterwirken. I can really recommend it because it helps you to flesh out your cleric and it helps you to give them an additional dimension. And I like the fact that all of this comes at a price and that they do set themselves apart now, especially the clerics that fight as a main purpose in life, that it sets them apart from the fighters because it gives them access to things that normal fighters cannot access. So that's my buyer's guide for the Dark Eye, das schwarze Auge, and Clerics.